everyone! In this video I'm going to show you through my whole art process. I've been asked regularly for some kind of art tutorial, but I'm not very good at those. Whenever I get asked that question for a tutorial, nobody really states what they would like specifically, so I'm just gonna show you through my art process, and just please keep in mind that this isn't a tutorial, so some things might be pretty vague, but I am gonna do my best to kind of give you a overview of what I do from start to finish. Firstly, I'm going to show you my main brushes that I use. I give all my brushes fun names for like no reason other than it makes me laugh. I'll tell you what type of brush they are. So the first one is called Penny, which the original name was just like G-Pen or something. It's your average regular brush, and honestly I hardly use it. The next one is Pencil, and I use this brush a lot. Basically, it's where you take a hard brush. The opacity is set to how much pressure you use, and you give it a slight taper. Like I said, I use that brush for so many things. But my main brush is actually airbrush, which I call oxygen brush. I know a lot of people tend to say that using airbrush for everything is not a good idea, but I use it a ton, and I personally love the way I render, so maybe this way you can learn to use the oxygen brush in a decent way. And overall, that's pretty much it for the main brushes that I use on like every single drawing. And the time on average it takes for me to finish a drawing really depends on if there's a background, how much lighting there is, if there's more than one character. But for this drawing I am working on of drawing Knuckles and Rouge, it took me about 4 hours, which is actually pretty good because there's 2 characters, but there is a very simple background that took me just probably 5 minutes. So it was just a fun drawing for me because I am addicted to drawing them. So yeah, and I think this is a better choice for this type of video because I am not qualified to tell you how I do backgrounds because half the time I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm kind of winging it, so yeah. Time to actually start talking about my general process. This actually starts before you actually draw anything, and this is coming up with the concept. For this drawing specifically, I just was on Pinterest and I found this reference that I thought was really cute for Knucksuge. So I just knew from the beginning that I wanted to draw Knucksuge in that exact pose, although I did actually draw more of their body, like it's a full body, not just a bust up. So that's kind of the only thing I changed, but other than that, that's one way you can come up with a drawing. A lot of times I will just randomly have an idea, like I will just be doing something and it just pops into my head absolutely randomly, and most of the time it's when I'm trying to fall asleep. So just make sure that when you have those ideas, if you don't draw them right away or anything, try to at least like note them down or draw a little thumbnail. And if you don't do something like this, for example, where I already had a pose, I really highly suggest before you begin, if you're wanting something a little more ambitious, to sketch it out as a little thumbnail. That will help you so much, and they take very little time at all, and it will really speed up your process, trust me. I have started doing this somewhat recently, and let me tell you, it is so nice. I really suggest that you do it. So for color picking, I hardly ever just for flat colors pick straight from the color wheel. And I know some people will be like, that's not good to do, you're not gonna learn from that, but honestly, I don't care, especially if I'm drawing my OCs, because typically if I'm making my own character, I will do that, but it's not like something that I do every day. And a lot of times I will just color pick from something. But for the actual shading and rendering, I do my own thing entirely. So for this drawing, there's this artist that I don't know the name of, but I'll put it on the screen. I don't personally follow their works, but sometimes I will see a drawing of Rouge, and it is gorgeous, and I love their color choices for her and Knuckles. So whenever I draw them, I tend to take direct inspiration for colors off of that. And let me tell you, by the way, some people like to make drama for no reason about whether or not color picking from something is stealing. People don't own colors, so feel free to do whatever you want. With colors, like literally, I swear some people are just so bored that they'll make drama for nothing. Nobody owns colors, and yeah, I'm not gonna go into this, but color picking is okay. So I really don't have much to say about how I draw anatomy or anything. A lot of the time, my whole art process is entirely on autopilot, to be completely honest. I only really think more about my art when it's something really new. So when I'm just drawing something like Knuckles and Rouge, which I've done several of times, I really don't have much thought behind it. I just draw, and yeah. So there really isn't much to say here. I'm really sorry, but I promise that for the rendering process, I will have plenty of things to say. So once I am done with the sketch, I make a new layer that's underneath my sketch layer, and I fill in with a solid color, and then I added another layer on top of that and set it to clipping. And on top of that, on that clipping layer, I just added the colors where they should go. And that's really it. And it's really simple. And then after that, I lowered the opacity of the sketch layer and merge it all together, because I really enjoy rendering on one layer and I love the lineless look. Then after that, I take the lasso tool or the selection tool. I don't really know what it is. The magic wand, I think. But typically I do use the lasso tool. I take the whole section that I just lassoed and color it fully with the color that's underneath. And after that, I select my airbrush or oxygen brush. I'm just gonna call them by their real names, so airbrush. I select airbrush and I go to the color wheel. What I do is to make the colors feel more alive, and what I personally just like to do is if it's a lighter color, like it's a highlight, I go towards yellow. But if it's a shading color, then I progressively get more away from yellow. So your first color that you're gonna do, the color that you just selected, so say brown. So you're gonna go more towards purple. You're gonna move away from the yellow and move the color just a little bit downwards, and I personally like to go a little horizontally, just a little bit, because that way you don't lose desaturation or anything, and it's like that kind of more lively color, because you still got that saturation. You're not losing, like, you're slightly switching the hue a little bit, giving them blood circulation. So yeah, and you keep doing that process over and over, where you move farther away from the purple each time you want a darker color and move a little more horizontally downward. And basically that's really what I do for selecting colors. Whatever I do, it's that. And like I said, for highlights, you do the exact opposite. Move towards the yellow and get horizontally up. I personally like to get really dark with the colors over time. I build up from just slightly darker from the original color that I selected up to almost black. But unless something is really like deep, I hardly ever actually go full black. And if you want to do black, who cares? Do whatever you want. But I personally don't, because I feel like if you aren't careful, it can become really muddy. There are definitely times where things will be dark, like to really show how deep or like how much light is hitting there, you will need to go full black. I know a lot of people will say don't do that, but if you know what you're doing, trust me, anything goes in art. Do whatever you want. I'm here to help you break rules and I'm just showing you what I like to do. So yeah, I used to be very shy, I guess is the word for it, from using really dark colors, but as I've studied drawings, which I don't really do proper studies where I kind of try and replicate, I mostly just stare at the picture in like amazement and admiration, and I've found that the drawings that I am most drawn to, or like the drawings that I'm most impressed with and inspired by, really go deep with their shadows. So it did take a lot of like courage, I guess. I don't know what the right word is, but like it did take a while to get comfortable with really getting that dark with shadows. And it's probably not gonna look that good the first few times that you do it, but over time you'll understand how to use the colors more and it'll become really fun. I much prefer how the darker colors look. And here's an example before I did that, when I was more shy about using darker colors, and here's an example of me doing it now. So that's how I render in a general sense, but things like eyes, eyeshadow, or just shiny things in general, I have a more specific way of how I render them. Starting out with eyes, like I said, I take the lasso tool and I just make the whole color flat. Then I do what I said with the colors, where I go a little darker and move away from the yellow, and I just lightly go around the eye. I just airbrush more at the top, and I do it lighter, and I do it lighter near the bottom. We're wanting to get pretty dark at the top, but not like super dark, though I've seen lots of drawings where at the top they make it like black and it is really cool. But for me personally, I just get close to black. And you just keep building up that darker color until you're surrounded with that. And then after that, I take the shape tool and I set it to eclipse, and I just make a eclipse shape, like, you know, the little oval type shape. I don't know why it's called eclipse. It's more of an oval, but whatever. FireAlpaca for you, I guess. And after that, I fill it in with whole, like almost completely black, sometimes black, depends on my mood, I don't know. And I add another layer on top and set it to clipping. Then I will take a color from my drawing, or that is already there, or that I plan to use, and I will scribble it in, and then I will click eraser and set it to soft eraser. Then I will erase that color till it's just a little shine at the top. And then I do the same thing for the eye underneath. I'll take a different color, and I'll take a different color from the drawing, and it's usually yellow or blue for me, but you can really just do anything. And I do the same exact thing, just underneath. I really suggest, though, that if you do this, do a color that is very light, very pastel, because if you do a dark color, it will look muddy and it won't really give off the effect of something like being shiny. So just do something light. Then after that, I merge all the stuff I just did onto the same layer that I've been working on, and then I get a new layer and I set it to overlay. And again, typically I either use a like fuchsia or a yellow, and I'll make a little oval type shape at the bottom of the eye. Then I will also go around the edges of the eye with that color. then usually that isn't enough for me, and I add sparkles with that color, like just little dots, and I set another layer to overlay, and I kind of add a little more details and stuff just to give it that extra shine because I love it. And then I again merge that all together, and sometimes I wait to do these steps near the end just to keep things more simple, but I just do it randomly sometimes once I'm done rendering the eyes. But I will add this kind of deep periwinkle color and go around the top edges of the eye to give it a really harsh, pretty shadow. And I set it to multiply. And usually it's a bit too dark, so I lower the opacity a little bit until I think it looks good personally. Then again, I merge it to my main layer, and then I select my pencil brush, and I lightly kind of make a boxy type shape that has very like loose, rounded edges, and I just add little shinies wherever I think needs it. And then I also love doing this thing, which you can't really notice unless you zoom in more, but I like to take this kind of mid light yellow color and add either a star or like a shine to it. And I don't know, I just love it so much. It makes me so happy. So yeah, that's how I do eyes. And for eyelashes, it's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like you just look at them, whatever shape you want, fill it in with black. Sometimes I will like alpha lock and airbrush a color to give it a little hint of something, and I think it looks cute, and I add little scribbles on it with the pencil brush. As for Rouge's eyeshadow, I just took darker colors using the same method I already talked about until I felt like it looked good, and then for a little hint of like a glow and shine, I took a color that is kind of more of the opposite side of the color wheel. Like for this blue, I took a pink, which isn't exactly across from the color wheel, but it's close enough, and I feel like I just love using pinks and purples in my art, so yeah. And then after I go around the edges lightly with that color, I will go in and add like a scribbly type shape, and I like to really go into the yellow zone with this. Like when it's something shiny, I really go into the yellow type area. So again, from studying the artist that had the colors that I picked from, she really just has the most beautiful looking eyeshadow for rouge that I've ever seen anybody render. And I've noticed that my favorite part is the shine. It's just, I would have never really thought to use a green type of color, and I just really didn't think of that, but I love it, so that's what I do. And I try to add a little more of that dark color around the edges of that green scribble to give it that pop. Hopefully this is making sense, but obviously you can mix and match, I don't know. And for the metal, on the heels or knuckles, Lego looking pieces, I again do pretty much the same thing as what I did for the eyeshadow, but instead of doing a scribble, I just do a lighter color and airbrush it. And I don't know how I did this, but they look like 3D metal balls. And I know that's technically not what Knuckles' shoes really look like. They look like Legos, but I really liked how it looked. They look genuinely so smooth and 3D that I kept it. Yeah, sometimes if I feel like the shadows aren't deep enough, or if there's areas that I feel need more of a harsh shadow, I will make another layer and set it to multiply. And I typically, again, it depends on the drawing, but typically I do a more fuchsia kind of purpley color, and I'll just add it where I think the shadows need to be darker. And for the little kissy marks, I did not want to draw all of that by hand. I tried before and I just didn't really like how it looked, and I just wanted to have fun with this drawing. This drawing was entirely just for fun, 100%. So I just went onto Picsart and looked up like kiss mark, and just set it to the color that I wanted. So yeah, there was that. And yeah, so that's it for this drawing specifically, but I will cover really quickly on how I often do more dramatic lighting in other drawings. Since I didn't do it here, I still want to mention it because I do it a lot, so I think it's worth talking about. So this is an OC that I made for my friend Frosted, and I just screen record every drawing that I make, whether or not I have a plan to use it for something or not. So this is a little bit old, but I think it shows a pretty good example of what I am about to talk about. So I'm done with rendering the overall drawing, but I still wanted to give it some more of like darker lighting and stuff. So to do that, I make another layer on top of it, I set it to clipping, and I set it to multiply. And depending on the drawing, you will take a color that kind of complements the background. So for this drawing, I think I chose like a deep purpley red, and usually it's a bit too dark when you set it to multiply, so a lot of the time you will lower the opacity. And after that, you can either erase that layer from where you want the lighting to be, or what I prefer to do most of the time, I go on a different layer, I make a new layer, set it to clipping again so I don't draw on the background or anything, and I set it to either add, but sometimes not multiply, sometimes overlay. Then for the general like softer glows, I will again use airbrush, my best friend, and give it that soft lighting where I think it needs, which I'm not going to talk about how to do lighting or shading or like understanding that stuff. If you want to see a video where I talk about that, let me know and I would make a video about it, but I'm not gonna get into all of that here. That would be a whole different subject. But yeah, I add the glowing effect where I think needs it, and if it's a more harsher glow or I can't really get it to where I want with the airbrush, I will either take the lasso tool, although that usually leaves a sharp edge that I don't like. I will most likely just use my pencil brush or something and just mix it out with my mixing brush. So yeah. And then that's about it. Although I would really like to start improving in that aspect and stop relying so much on blending modes, which I might touch on the future with trying to improve on that aspect, but we'll see. As of right now, that's where I'm at. So yeah. So I think that's pretty much everything. I hope this video isn't like crazy long or anything, and that overall this video helped you in one way or another at least. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I will try my best to answer them in the comments. And if you have anything like tutorials or just something like that that you would like to see, let me know and I might make a video about it. We'll see. I don't think I'm the best at explaining my process, mostly because again, it's mostly autopilot for me, but I'm trying. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and that it will help you out. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.